Good morning, Penang. You know, the team started with Arul complaining about HR, and then Ibrahim kind of continued that team. And I was just thinking about when I first started getting into the HR space. So I was running aviation business, and I got very tired, and I wanted to resign. So I wanted to quit GE. I was with a company called General Electric. And so, I didn't know this, but I was part of this pool of 100 top talent in the company or something like that. So when I told I wanted to resign, essentially the head of HR for the whole GE, he decided, he sent me an email and said, hey, I'm in Beijing, why don't you fly over, why don't we have coffee and chat? And I was like, I've never met him before, Bill Connolly, so I said, okay, flew out to Beijing, had a chat with him, and I was telling him I'm very tired, I just need a break, blah, blah, blah. And he said, you should do something, you should take a sabbatical. So I said, what's a sabbatical? Do something different. You still work, but do something completely different. So he said, in GE, you've been here, at that time I think I was about 7 years or so in GE. He said, you've been here about 7, 8 years. What do you think needs fixing in GE? And then I looked at him, I said, HR lah, you guys are. and essentially that started my journey to HR, because he said, okay, welcome to the team, let's go fix HR, right? But there's a lot of things about HR that people complain about, but I want to take one step back, and I want us to understand where we are today and where we need to go. I think that's important, and have a little bit of perspective. So essentially, what I want to do is, I want to talk through how we've evolved as a function. So I'm both a person who came from outside trying to fix something, and like a lot of politicians say, they made politics to fix politics, and then they become part of the problem, right? So I hope I'm not like that. I became part of the problem. But we started, really, HR was an administrative function. I just get admin done. I do the hygiene stuff, which is kind of where today we are seeing so much automation. Brio and all these tools are really saying, hey, we don't need to be sitting there. We don't need to be manual still. And then we moved and said, no, we are functional experts. We do manpower planning. We're experts in succession. We are experts in a number of things. And then we move into strategies. You know why we move here? Because we said, hey, how come people is the most important agenda in the CEO's? Ben said that. People is the number one agenda, but no HR person sits on the board. And so we said, we need to sit on the board. In the 80s, HR people fighting. HR should be equal, should be on the board. Big fight. And then the leadership team said, you know why you cannot sit on the board? Because you're inside-out leaders. You want to sit on the board, you must be outside-in leaders. And what does outside-in mean? Outside-in means you only care about employees and line managers. But you must care about partners, you must care about the community, you must care about investors, you must care about regulators, you must care about everything. How can you be a leader when you don't care about the other things? You only care about how I take care of employees and how I support line managers. And so you try lah. We tried as a function to do this, but a couple of things happened. A couple of big challenges took place. Challenge number one, the workplace started to shift. It was simple, administrative, structured, and then it became a bit complicated with emails. Like Ben said, things are messy with people. It's never so simple. But then technology came and it became complex. And today with AI, it's becoming chaotic. Now the problem is, actually this cycle happens all the time. When the Industrial Revolution came, it's very simple work. Then it became complicated, then it became complex, and then it became chaotic. And then, as a team, we put in some structures, some standards, things became simple again. Today we are at a point where things are becoming complex. Now you may say, no, in my company it's not. We are very simple, or we are slightly complicated, but we are not complex and we are not so. We are definitely not chaotic. But let me tell you, it's going to happen. If not this year, next year, the year after, and so on, sometime it's going to happen. And you know why this happened? Let me talk a little bit about messiness. So here's what happened. About 10, 15 years ago, let's say, let me make fun of Razman, since we are on the roll here with Razman now. So let's make fun of Razman and Ben. Okay, so who's more productive, Ben or Razman? Who do you think is more productive? Okay, maybe not a good question. Okay, let me figuratively say. So let's imagine there are two characters. One is called Ben, one is called Razman. So Ben does 2 output a day. Razman does 10 output per day. Okay, now After a while, Rasman says, hey, me and Ben, I think I'm more productive, I should be paid more. In fact, I should be paid 5 times more, because I do 5 times more. No, HR will say, no, you must understand, your increment is 1 year's time, you come back, next year, blah, blah, blah. You have this. So he gets upset. He said, you know what, I will sell my output to the highest bidder, right? So he goes out there and says, I will still sell 2 of my output to my company, but let me sell my other 8 output to another company. And this started what we call the gig economy. Because people said, hey, I don't want to sell time, I want to sell output. There's a difference, because today, you say I'm selling time. Like Ben said, okay, Ibrahim said, you got 5 hours of productive, or 6 hours a day. You're selling the time, in exchange you're getting a salary. Now, the equation changed because I said, I think I'm more productive, I should sell output. And so what happened is many people started to say, and this we started the freelancers, I will sell output because I'm productive, I can sell output. And so what happened is, suddenly, last time, a structure of a company is very hierarchical, right? Easy, CEO, down. But suddenly, there's one contributor who's not our employee sitting in our team, providing output. There's another guy providing output, there's another guy providing output. And so we start to structure our team slightly different. We structure it as networks. We have in-source, outsource employees, everybody is structured like a network. So suddenly there's a bit of tension in how a company is structured. Not so clean. The second thing happens. The CEO used to be the all-powerful because they had all the information in the world. Suddenly everybody has access to information. So why do we need to go up and talk to CEO? So you start to see some structures coming in where it's network here, but this structure starts to starts to break also, because I don't need to go to the top to get information. Why should I? I have as much information as the CEO. Technically, you search hard enough, right? And so there's a little bit more tension there. Then we start to see a couple of other tensions. So when I first started with GE, 1994, right? When I first started at GE, GE did 2 things very well for me. They gave me what we call a pretty good salary, and they gave me a laptop, Can you imagine, 94, you got a laptop? Terror, no? I thought I was like, hey, cool. Because majority of my people don't have that. In fact, by 95, I had email, And I used to send a lot of email to everybody, but nobody answered because nobody else had email. But that's beside the point, right? So I thought that the best company in the world is GE because they gave me good pay and they gave me a laptop, right? But 5 years later, I was like, GE, I think I should look for another job somewhere. Because my needs started to grow. Because I said, I want to be in a team that got good boss, but also good colleagues. And I want training, I want certification, I want validation, I want knowledge, I want more. Give me promotion too, give me money also, and give me more money. And then a few years later, we start to change. We say, not only do I want to work for a good company, I want to work for a company that has purpose. So we have companies rebranding. Oh, we are a social enterprise, we are a purpose-driven company, or simply right, for marketing purposes. But this new generation, which Ibrahim talked about, they say they want to work for purpose-driven companies. And so what happened is, HR started to change. They started to create engagement teams. They started to create this team, that team, everything because people started to change. So you start to see business starts to change, structures start to change with the gig and all. Over the last 15, 20 years. So it's not something happened overnight. It took time for this to happen. And then we have AI. A couple of months ago, me and my son had, my son's 17, we had a competition. We said, who can become an artist in Spotify first? Right? So we had this competition, and I won. I'm 50-something now. So I'm not even Gen Z. I wish I was like Ibrahim, Gen Z, or whatever Gen he was. Or I actually Gen X, right? So between Rasman, me, and Ibrahim, we have 3 generations sitting in one room, right? But so 50-something-year-old went on Spotify, so you can check me out. It's called Le Parker, my artist profile, and I have 4 songs in there already. So I beat my son, right? But how do I do it? How do I become an artist? Right? I use technology, right? Because now AI allows everyone to be an artist, and afterwards, when I end today, I have a song I wrote for you, right? So I'll play that for you all. Okay. But it's not only going to change the cool stuff like art, like music, and so on and so forth. It's also going to change every single function. Many years ago, I was thinking, how did mobile change industries it's not supposed to? Netflix is the media industry. Airbnb or your Airbnb changed the hotel industry. Uber changed the transport industry. Mobile, you've got no more Spotify, change the music industry. You've got no mobile, got no Spotify, got no Netflix, none of it works. AI is going to be even more drastic. It's going to change industries we didn't even think about, including yours, right? And it will change your function. Now, so this whole word quick, I call it, right? Automation, all these things is going to change, including how you manage people, what you define as career, what you define as skills, what you define as experience. Because in the past, oh, you have a lot of experience, very good. But you know, experience might not be a good thing. It might be something that causes you to be stuck in an old paradigm. And later, Jojo, Reggie, who's a great CEO, all of them will talk a little bit about. But here's where it comes, here's what has happened. This is very important to understand. So, you know, when cars first came, there were horses before that, right? Cars replaced horses, but cars took 55 years to replace horse. So cars and horse were intermingled together. Now, when I got email, I told you, right? It took about 8 years before fax machines, some of you may know what those things are. Fax machines were replaced by email. It took 8 years. So in the meantime, I would fax people to get my information, but I would still send emails, nobody replied. But after 8 years, nobody used fax machines. So there was this thing called a transition time, where both the old and the new exist. Today, right, we are in this time of transition. And the reason we have a time of transition is because there's no standards. So I'll tell you, okay, I want to invest in currency. Which currency should we invest in? 30 years ago, everyone would say US dollar. Today, US dollar, renminbi, fiat currency? No, people would say Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solano, Ripple, digital currencies. Now we know, I tell you, you know this, one day, you know cars will replace horse. Because today, 100 years ago, you look back and say, so stupid, those horse people, right? Because they are fighting with the car people. But today, people 100 years from now say, so stupid, these people fighting about fiat money. We know digital currency will win. The problem is this, we don't know which digital currency. Is it Bitcoin? Is it Ethereum? Or something new? And that's the problem. There is no standard. When there's no standard, the new cannot be. Now you have to operate as HR leaders in this transitionary time, right? And it becomes very confusing because we don't know whether we should be this and this. And I'll show you some examples for HR, right? Because your boss is saying, I want everything to be standardized, standardized, standardized. Hey, but make sure you personalize everything. Personalize, but hey, which one? You want standardized, personalized? I want you to help employees, take care of them, be good to them. But I also want you to make sure you push them and whack them and beat the hell of them until they make their numbers. You don't make them whack them, okay? I want you to be strategic, but must also be operational. I want you to drive change. Keep everything stable. I don't like all this nonsense. You don't disrupt things too much. I want you to be transparent. You know, you must be global. No, you must be local. You must be both. You must be both now at the same time. And we must be driving people's well-being. You know, mental health is so important. You whack the heck out of them and make sure the numbers are met, right? Now, sounds familiar? Yes. Why? Can you do both? Can you personalize and standardize? Can. Ben will say with Brio can. but here's the thing. Actually, with technology, you can. And that's why more and more we want our Grab food and we want it now, right? Why so long? 10 minutes to deliver food, 15 minutes we get angry, right? Because remember, gig economy didn't come because it became because of a disengagement in the company resulted in somebody leaving and saying, "I'll sell my output." It results from what little micro decisions we make that create macro interventions or macro changes, right? And so, you know, I did some research the last few days and I asked, you know, a number of, what is the biggest problem Malaysian HR people? And there were 5 because the page so much worse, so I took out I took out one. Right? But here's what the problems HR people apparently, through this extensive research said, there's retention and talent mobility was very high. That means we really couldn't hold we can hire people but cannot hold them. We have so much rewards pressure, right? How do we really reward people in a meaningful way? And most people feel, hey, whatever you give them, not enough. HR gets blamed. Well-being, the mental health issues, the significant challenge, burnout, stress, silence, what we call the quiet quitting. So many problems happen. And this is Malaysia only data, right? Skill shortage and AI was asked to redesign jobs, not just to fill them. So this primary research came from people who were sharing some of these content. So maybe the smaller guys may not have been sharing. But I want to talk about the last piece. what do you need to morph today? Because we say we want to be an outside-in HR provider, and we struggle with that. But I think the HR function needs to morph to something else, and that's really what I want to share today. I think the HR function needs to morph into not an employee advocacy function, but into an employee intelligence function. So about 20 years ago, I saw something strange happen in the marketing space. What happened in marketing? In the past, marketing was a creative, was a job for the creative people, advertising. You watch, is it Mad Men? Mad something, right? Mad Men, I think. Okay, so if you go on Netflix, you watch Mad Men, you see how the advertisers put out cool ads and have all kinds of funny lifestyles to be very creative. And that was what the marketing function was. And then somewhere in the 90s, the marketing function, especially with what Amazon did with Jeff Bezos and so on, the marketing function started to change from a creative function into a data analytics function. Our job is to have data on the customer and go very deep in that data. And understand our customer more than the customer understands themselves. So companies like Google, Facebook, all these guys started to morph. Because ultimately they were saying, we understand the customer better than the customer, and we're able to sell to the customer based on their fear, based on their needs, based on their whatever we can to tingle them. And so marketing moved into very technical space. So if you're in the marketing space, it's no more fun and creative. It's all about technicalities today. I think the HR space is going to go through the same evolution. We need to be knowing our employees so well, better than the employees know themselves. And the reality is, many of you have this card system where when people go out of the office, go to the toilet, they have to click the card and so on. Right? We actually know more about our employees than we think. We even know how many times they go to the toilet, how long they take and spend in the toilet, all this stuff. We have all that data. Right? But what are we doing with it? How do we help our employees to do the things that Ben talked about? To grow better, to be more productive, to drive change, to be able to be more efficient, to be able to create more output. How are we helping them? And how are we helping them when we know they are going to be in trouble? Right? And later you will listen to Tarif and some of the other guys who talk about the technology. Tarif can tell you, right? So Tarif, the ex-Google guy, he can tell you when your employees are going to leave with certainty. And I started using his technology, and I really was so impressed because one of the guys, 3 months before I left, they told me this guy's going to leave. I coffee with him, he said, yeah, I just got an offer. Oh, you haven't accepted. Okay, let's talk about this, right? Especially you want to keep them, or you don't want to keep them, then you just say, oh, good for you. Bye-bye. Probably won't even have coffee with the person. But how do we have that intelligence? Because once you have that intelligence, you'll be able to do two things very well. Number one is you'll be able to get an insight from that employee. Now, once you have that insight, you're able to do the number two thing very important. You are able to create an experience for that employee. Whether it's to train them, whether it's to cajole them to rejoin you, whatever it is, you're able to create a memorable experience. So if you can understand your employees better and get that insight, you're then able to serve your employees better. And if you do that well, you're able to drive productivity, you're able to drive results, you're able to drive performance. And that's it, it's very simple. Now, the complexity comes in how do we get the insights? And how do we automate some of this experience? If you have 1,000 people, how do I get so many insights? Because every person will have 10, 15 insights. How do I create this 10, 15 experience per person times by 1,000? Wow, that's 5,000. And you cannot. But this way you can personalize and standardize through technology. And that's what today is all about. It's about, hey, HR team, let's embrace technology because the expectation is I want standardization, personalization, I want global and local, I want change and stability. And that's what today is all about. That's what me and Aru, we talk about this. How do we help our HR team and not get beaten up like people like Ibrahim and Ben and others who are CEOs who are upset with the function, but say there is still hope. In fact, outside of marketing, we can be the second function that really morphs into analytics and really morphs into understanding and it really morphs into technology. And we can do that, right? And to me, it's really about translating insights into experience. If you get right insights, you can drive experiences. So let me challenge you a little bit. Here's what AI is going to do. AI is going to ask you this question and provide you this. What if you could anticipate workforce trends, skills gaps, attrition 10 times faster? If you can get these insights 10 times faster, what would that do to your function? How would that change? What if 80% of repetitive HR processes, onboarding, payroll, all these, were automated freeing you to work on people-related things, culture, helping set up rituals, leadership, strategic transformation. What if technology allows you to do that? What if you could continuously turn your workforce data into predictive insights and then automate the predictive insights into interventions? What if you could deliver truly personalized employee growth journeys? And I'm happy to send my slides to you guys, but what if you could detect and resolve performance issues before even the employees know about it? And that's what Facebook, Google know. Google knows you better. In fact, Google knows something's going to happen to you before you, right? They can even predict, right, when you're going to get, when you're going to get married, and likely when you're going to buy something, and when you're going to get a puppy, and how do we organize it in such a way. You should be able to do the same for your employees, right? If you can match employee skills and passions together with critical interventions that or projects that the company need to do. And you can so think about it in this way. If this happens, and this will happen in the next 2 to 3 years, and I'll tell you why. You know why it's going to happen? It's because we are, and part of it is that yesterday, this is kind of the things that we were in a very stable environment, long-term planning, very easy. Today, a lot of uncertainty. We have no idea, because no standards, right? We have no idea what AI is going to do. And GPT 5.1, is launched this week, I think. Gemini 3 completely changing the game with agents. Now, I'll talk a little bit about that. But what does that mean? That means we need to have the ability to sense in a real and agile way, right? And here's what's the disruption in HR, specifically in HR. So once we are going to start to automate what our operational, I call this 4 intelligence areas. HR operational intelligence is going to be automated, 100%. No need to talk about it. Employee experiences are going to be personalized, but standardized. Business model is going to change how you structure your company, how you basically look at how people are grouped together, how they report. The other piece is how you service. So you are a service organization, right, HR? You service your line managers. How you service them is going to change. And here's how it's going to change. You're going to have automated systems. You're going to have new employees. You know who's these new employees? AI agents, right? And you're going to start to see how these agents connect in a multimodal, that means vision AI, speech AI, or listening AI, and also text or context AI. And all these things are going to happen. And how is this going to work? Today, most of us are at stage 1. Stage 1 is what we call co-pilot stage, which is what Aru is talking about, right? He said you ask the AI to do something, and the AI will do it for you, right? So you draft email, you can draft whatever, your legal, now, you can save a lot of lawyer fees. You ask them to draft an initial draft, then you send it to the lawyer and say, this is okay, I don't need 10 hours of your time, I just need 1 hour to check something, right? But here's where it gets a bit more complex. You're going to have a human being, right, as an employee, and you're going to have a specialist agent as an employee who work 24 hours, don't sleep, and don't need to be paid, even better. And you have to manage both. So how do you manage an employee with all his messiness and needs, and an AI agent, and make sure they work together and collaborate? And this is, human gives a goal, agent executes the step. So I say, agent, you're taking care of this, and the agent takes care of it, and human checks. And then comes the multi-agent, where agent to agent talk to each other and start doing it. All this is already available, right? And my whole team, right? Last week, I told my whole team, we went through a training, and we said, let's learn how to build agents. Every single one of you in your workflow have to build your own agents, and we have to have a central way to understand how to manage all these agents. So I started doing that with NNN, with a whole bunch of other things, right? I think 2026 is going to be where we start moving from co-pilot into some of these other places. And HR has to be ahead of the game. We have to be ahead of the game now. Because in many companies in the US, we are starting to see a merger between IT departments and HR departments. And you know who is getting the job? Not the CHRO. It's the tech guy. But I think in Malaysia, we're going to change that. We're going to get the HR person, we kick the IT fellas out. The HR person is going to understand agents. And so we can go to the boss and say, we understand technology, but we also understand people. The IT fellas don't understand people. So we become the boss, they can report to us, right? It's going to happen. It's going to see mergers. Finance also the other thing. I think it's all going to merge together. Functions are going to merge together, right? And here's an example of what it means. How you can embed AI into your workflows, right? I give you two examples of workflows. So you can replace old processes or you can enhance them. And here's an example of L&D. How do you either enhance or replace different parts of learning and development? This is a place I'm very familiar with, right? You can start to say, and you all have your own workflows. Here's how I do L&D. How do I replace and enhance my L&D process? Here's recruitment, right? You have it from job posting all the way to final decision and onboarding. How do you enhance it or replace processes? And you can look at any process, any workflow. You can start to say, how do I use agents in enabling that? And to me, it goes back to this. The biggest disruption, I think, is if we can change our mindset to believe that HR is no more the soft stuff. We're no more a soft function. We're actually a hard function with analytics, with intelligence, with data. And if we can start to make that shift ourselves, all the rest of the things we can learn from YouTube. Really, I learned how to become an artist from YouTube. In fact, I learned better than my son. I think at least faster than my son, right? And I'm going to close out with 4 little pieces of advice. I think we have to start today, December 2025. How do we start transitioning into an intelligence function? It's not just about embracing AI, it's about using it as a partner to really drive and accentuate your organization. So how do you immerse? So the starting point, immerse yourself in understanding technology, understanding agents. How do you build your employee insights? How do you capture the insights? What technology are you using to capture the insights? And then how are you using the insights to automate the experiences? And ultimately, how are you going to lead the way? HR, this is an opportunity for HR to say to the whole business, hey business, I am going to lead the way. We are always followers on HR. I think here's an opportunity. AI is giving us an opportunity. In fact, AI is actually positioning Malaysia very nicely. People don't realize this. But we are one of the biggest AI hubs in the world, right? Really, with all the data centers and everything. And I think HR can also take the lead with that. So I'm going to end and close with a little song that I wrote. We might not listen to the whole song, but it's also on YouTube. You go to my YouTube channel, type Roshan Thiran, you'll be able to listen to all the different songs I've written there. But I just put it out last time, the song on YouTube, but I'm going to share a little bit, and the song actually is customized to you. It's all about Penang HR people rising up, and Penang HR people taking the bull by the horn and leading the way. The song is called Leading the Way. So I will leave you with this song and close out with this song. Okay, here we go.
Drive, we feel the ground beneath our workplace. A shift from emails ring like 1,000 alarms. New tech.